Alchemists. This is your Photoshop 101 Basics Toolbar tutorial. Could we make it any longer? I don't think we can. This is going to be the first episode / installment of this Photoshop Basics series. This is the first thing that I ever learned on Photoshop. I went through a lot of tutorials on YouTube, and as some of you know, some of those are the most torturous things you could ever sit through in your entire freaking life. So I'm hoping this is a little bit more interesting, but this is how I learned. I hope that it helps you learn. If not, you can move on to someone more boring than me. And we're just gonna get started. We are going to first start with an unedited picture, this one right here on the screen, and I will show you the toolbar. And as we move forward, if you ever have any questions about any of my tutorials, please feel free to email me at katiealchemy@gmail.com or leave a comment and I will get back to you. The first thing that we really want to go over is what this whole toolbar even means. So we're going to start with these tools down here. Now, I first learned these 3 tools, and if you tap on it, you can get these 3 options. Whenever I first started Photoshop, it's what I used before anything else. This is gonna sound weird to a lot of people, but we do things a little differently in the Alchemy kitchen. We're not traditional Photoshoppers. We make our own way. So I'm showing you my way, and obviously through these tutorials, you will find your own way of doing this. So any pros out there who are like, no, start with levels, I'm telling you right now, this is what I learned. First and foremost, this is why my images look the way they do. Let's start with the burn tool. Burn tool is the little hand. If that helps you remember, click it. If it's not already selected, we can go to midtones up here on this little bar up here, shadows and highlights. This is going to be very important because this is going to be kind of determining what sort of look you're going to get. It's going to be targeting a different part of the image, and if you're familiar with art at all and you know highlights, midtones, and shadows with drawing, painting, whatever, it's the same basic principle. I kind of like to call this Photoshop painting. So we're going to select shadows, and you can change the exposure here. This is kind of like opacity a little bit, except it's different in the way that it's exposure. Nothing more to say about that really. Hardness, I always keep it low because I don't want to leave the imprint of the brush that I'm using, and you can select the brush that you want. I have different brushes down here, but you could use one that's more feathered like this. So if you turn up the hardness, this is what it looks like. Well, let's make it smaller. And turn up the exposure, you're gonna get a circle. We don't want that. We want it to be as feathered and interesting as possible, unless you are doing planets, in which this makeup would be hilarious if you did like little planets or like that. Okay, I'm getting really distracted. This is the history area. This is the tool that you will use all the time. You can also use Command Z to undo one thing or redo an element you've added to the image or changed about the image. So you can go back as many steps as you want to on the history tool, and you can start back at the start if you don't like what you've done. I've done that a lot and trashed an entire edit, which sometimes takes me an hour to an hour and a half. So there you go. This is gonna save your life, just trust me. So with shadows for this image, if I'm going to pick on shadows particularly, I would go in and go over the eyes, not quite that dark. Exposure I like to keep really low. I don't like to go above 30 unless I'm doing something really drastic for an image, like darkening a backdrop. You can make things, only shadows in this case, darker. So down here in my hand, and my eyes obviously will retain a lot of this burn tool because they are in shadow. So that's what shadows does. Let's move on to midtones. Midtones, once you get this down, again, it's easy. It's just the tone basically between, it's in the middle of highlights and shadows. So this is a highlight right here where you see this bright white on my face, and my hair would be considered highlighted, like right here. And you can just go over anything that's not. You can go over highlights, but it doesn't affect it as much. So like the pink in my hair are gonna be more affected than the white, because the white is absorbing a lot of the light from my softboxes in the shoot and the ring light. So that makes it really dark. Then you can affect highlights. This is where it gets tricky. I don't like to use this tool quite as much unless it's, because see, this is what it does. Unless some highlights really need some help and I need to dim them a little bit, but it kind of takes the contrast out of everything. So now we're gonna move on to the dodge tool. If you want to see it in pretty layman's terms, this is the best way I learned. Burn is like shadows, and it only covers the darker areas of the image, even though you can darken light areas of the image with it. And dodge tool only targets highlights or lighter aspects of the image. So you can do the same thing up here on this bar, and you can operate the shadows, you can lighten them. So like if I want to lighten my eyes to change the color of them, which I can even get to another tutorial about that later, you can just lighten it like that. Does that make sense? See? Before, after. That's shadows. Highlights. This can get a little crazy. I mean, more than a little. There you go. See? Look at that. Same basic principle. And then we have the sponge tool. This is saturation or desaturation. So if I really want to saturate an image, I will leave it on saturate up here, and I will saturate the crap out of it like that. See that? You can change the flow, which I would still almost refer back to opacity. With flow, it's still different, but I just treat it like it's an opacity meter. And then you can also desaturate an image with this. I wouldn't use this for black and white, but you certainly can if you want to. See, let me show you. At 100, it's pretty saturated there. So there you go. These are the 3 tools that I first learned on. Above it is the blur tool. It's pretty much the same. Once you get down the basic principle, strength, I still treat it like it's opacity. If I'm creating an image that's got a lot of high contrast in it, I sometimes like to blur out pores or fine lines because we don't want to draw attention to that unless that is the focal point. Then we have the erase tool. It erases the background, the foreground, everything. You won't really need it until we get into layers, as you can see. I'm just kind of explaining. It's got the same thing, opacity, flow. You got the airbrush mode right here. Not something you need to know yet. Hardness, size of brush. The clone tool, very important to learn. I have a very short tutorial on it, but I can go into more depth if you guys request it. This replaces patterns or skin with whatever you select. So I can make another me if I want to, right there. This is the brush tool, the paint tool. You can select pencil, color replacement, mixer. I like to use the brush tool the most to just add color. If you select a color down here, this is the color select, the color picker. You can select which color you'll be using. This is the healing brush tool. You can use it to get rid of blemishes. You can use it to smooth certain areas of an image. I don't use it a great deal because sometimes it's not smart enough for me. I use the clone tool and do my own. Here's the crop tool right here. You can slice, select. This is more in depth. Crop is basic. Everyone knows how to use a crop tool. There you go. Go and adjust the width and the height. So when I'm cropping for Instagram, if I'm not using a fully wide image and I don't want to crop on the Instagram app, I will go and put in 100. And there you go. Easy. Here's the dropper tool. Not important, in my opinion. Now the select tool, you have the magic wand or you have the quick select. Quick select is a smart select that you can adjust to only select certain things for you. It's different than the lasso tool, if you've heard of the lasso tool. You have to draw on your selection with the lasso tool. That doesn't look right. I don't know what that was. There we go, potato. So the quick select is my favorite by far because you can go to select up here, hit inverse. I like to blur things, which I can show you guys later how to use different filters. And you can Gaussian blur the heck out of the background, which I would never go this far as to blur all of it this much because it leaves, when you just deselect, a line. But quick selection is great for blurring out backgrounds and keeping the foreground nice and sharp. And here is the lasso tool. Like I said, you can draw out to your selection. You can decide how much you're gonna feather it. If you can see, feather it like 100. There you go. Easy peasy. Here's the text. You can do text vertically, horizontally. Horizontally type mask. That's more in depth for those of you who have just begun using Photoshop. You can type in anything you want and it turns into a layer, which we can talk layers. So that's the basic tools you'll need for the toolbar. Layers is something where you can alter an image. If you duplicate the background layer, you can alter this image however you want to, or you can add in objects to an image, you can add filters, anything you want. I like to create a background layer copy so that whenever I go and I edit things, say it's too extreme, say it's really extreme, I can change the opacity and fill of the layer. So I only want it a little bit. There you go. That's why I use it personally. If there are any serious edits that I make that the history tool can't go all the way back into your history from when you first started, it immediately kind of refreshes after it gets to the bottom. So that's why you create a duplicated background layer just in case, so that your background layer is still intact. It's still fully raw image that you brought in, not in raw format, but the raw image. Starting out, I'm using a JPEG right now. We're gonna go over raw images later. But this is so that you don't lose all of your work and you don't have to start over. So there you go. So that is the extent of the basics that I learned on, and that's about it. If you guys enjoyed this tutorial, please hit like, subscribe, comment if you have any comments, if you have any questions, tutorial requests, that would be fabulous. Just leave them below. If you're just saying hi, hi, and as always, do you.